Hi, this is presentation number 4, Inquiry and Discovery Learning. The lesson for today is Right Plant, Right Place, Plant Identification, and Plant Selection and Research. The objective of this lesson is to, by the end of this lesson, the students will be able to identify at least 10 plants, species, and present at least one to the class. At the end of the lesson, they will be able to discuss the importance of plant species selection and planning your plant palette in your yard. And also, at the end of the class, you'll be able to identify the zones in your yard and successfully select plants to match these sunlight areas. This lesson requires the students to challenge their preferred learning styles, and I tried to get them to use analysis, imagination, common sense, and active experimentation. I believe the learning for this lesson happened at several levels. Each student had a hands-on experience at the nursery and obtained research knowledge at home and then followed up with work in the classroom. They were required to use their concrete experience, reflective observance, and abstract conceptualization to active experimentation for this activity. Thank you. Hi, we're here today at South Seminole Farm and Nursery to go over the exercise that was done by the Seminole County Master Gardeners Program last week. So, this is the outdoor classroom. And so this is where the class was given the instructions and the clipboards to go around with the tour and take the names of 10 of their favorite plants and go home after the class and look up the plant needs, the mature size, the height and width, to look at how much water it needs, what kind of soil, how much light, and to put together a favorite plant list for them to be able to use in their yards, and to also help them understand about putting the right plant in the right place. And now we'll go and walk around and take a look at some of the plant palette that Jim has out here today at the South Seminole Farm and Nursery. This is his camellia collection, Camellia City. And he has over 50 varieties of camellias. Camellias are a woody plant that blooms in November through January. It is a small tree to shrub and is pretty hardy and loves to grow in the shade. Hi, now we've moved into the full sun section and the trees. And so here you can see we have a wide variety of trees that are cold hardy and are able to be planted in most people's yards. And you can see here we have some of the native trees, we have some red maples, we have some loquats and some live oak trees, some monkey puzzle trees. There's probably over 40 varieties of full sun plants that can be used. Butterfly plants and fruit trees and vegetables. Red porterweed. How many people got their assignment done with the 10 plants? How many people found it to be challenging? Wasn't as easy as it. Could you find the answers to all of those questions in one place?
No. And then
they had to look through a lot.
Yeah.
So looking back at this exercise, do you think now that you can take 10 plants or any number of plants and find the proper information to put them into the right place in your yard?
Yes. After some time.
I think that my most important learning was that there were some things I would have learned on impulse at the nursery and would when I did research it, I thought, oh, no, that's not the right plant for me, you know, and so I found better choices.
Better choice. So that helped you in that respect.
You know, I went on several different sites and I found contradicting information too at times.
Uh-huh.
I go, okay.
Conflicting, like on what areas did you find conflicting information?
Pardon?
What types of areas did you find? Was it anything
just
general that you,
like propagation, what they preferred and how to propagate it, maybe things like disease. It was just normal information. It would be different from one site to the next.
fertilizing?
Fertilizer.
So you see that there's a lot of inconsistencies in all these different books and things. So a lot of gardening is kind of trial by error, or you know, you got to do some inductive thinking and do some scientific evaluation. So do you think that, so this is landscape design and plant selection, and so you understand now after going in and seeing, answering all 14 of the questions about the plants. So landscape in Florida is different. We know zone 9B. We know now about full sun. How many people out there believe that there's good reason to plan your landscape? So we're not having to convince anybody of that anymore. So how many people when you came into this class didn't have that mindset? It is key in any type of landscape design. And so when you take this base map and you start to draw those different areas of your yard that you use for different things, you're going to start to see a pattern emerge. And then you'll be able to do some measurements and understand where your utility lines are. And of course, over time, if you put in new patios and all that, you would have to update this. But this is a good base to start with. So making a plot plan with just the bubbles of the area over top of your survey is really important. And then you know that all the bubbles have to align with what? Irrigation. Light source. Existing trees, that's kind of a light source thing, but your soils. Access. How about size? Mature size. And those. So you see your activity areas have to match up. So plant material defines the space, and you know there are many different size shapes. We saw, think of all of the focal plants that we looked at gyms. There were some very tall plants that could be, you know, balanced. If you plant trees that are deciduous on the north side of your home versus planting trees that are non-deciduous on the north side of your home, do you see there's a difference? In the wintertime, when those north winds blows, if you have tree leaves there or evergreen type trees, they can help reduce the amount of wind hitting your home. So there's a lot of environmental considerations when you're making a plant landscape design. And also the specific plant characteristics. The shady spot. He did have a lot of alternatives for shady spots, but shady spots are not an easy place, because if you go into the natural forests and areas, you're going to see open spaces in a lot of those areas with maybe just ferns. And he had several varieties of ferns that we could use. So it can be a work of art. That could be a lot of work. Or you think about the types of plants you're going to plant, the different levels in your yard. So here's some Florida-friendly type landscape areas back from 2006. Is there anybody who is willing to tell us about one of their plants? Off the bat, real quick, just 2-minute update. One plant.
I'll do one of my favorites.
Okay.
It's called the banana bush. I got the technical name too, but it's actually supposed to bloom in the spring, but it's actually Jim's properly blooming now. And what's really neat about it is it's a bush that can get 6 to 8 feet tall. It's dark green, but it tolerates shade. So if you need a hedge in the shade, it can be a hedge in the shade. And when it blooms, it smells like bananas. And it's very, very fragrant. And it's just really a really neat plant to plant it, once again, in the right place, because it can get about 6 feet wide, so it'll make a good hedge. Stays green year-round. It's an evergreen. But it's the fact that it'll grow in the shade. That's what I find amazing. It can be a hedge in the shade that stays green. In fact, it can go in the sun, but they say it'll actually start yellowing in the sun. So it wants partial shade to shade.
Now, if you think about that, help you with So does anybody think they might try to do that? It's a helpful.
I picked most of the plants that are already in my garden.
Ah, so you were doing it for good.
Well, because I knew that I would keep this. So, but I didn't really, I didn't do it in the right format. I did each plant separate.
That's fine.
So I just.
Yep. And there was no specific assignment how. And what I'd like to do is, once we get it, all the booklets together, then we're gonna look through it, and then if everybody wouldn't mind, in some for fillers, if we could go through, and then everybody who didn't share a plant can share a plant over time with everybody, and that way we can increase our.
So there you've got it. Presentation number 4, Inquiry and Discovery Learning. Next time, we will be working on presentation number 5, which will be Student's Choice. And I believe that this presentation number 4 went very well. We had a successful trip to the nursery and people were enjoying the outdoor activities. We had a good experience in the classroom and really enjoyed working on this project.